Sometimes really cool ideas don't turn out as exciting as they could have been. Why is that? Hello, welcome back to Seldomly Often. I'm Daniel, today we're talking fragrances, and this is a double review of Pernoire Masar and Pernoire Amoral. These reviews are for fragrances that have a lot of experience with, multiple wears in many situations, and are meant to give you a general idea of what it feels to wear the fragrance. As per usual, I do a lot of research before buying fragrances, but I don't really like to go into details about notes and accords, as I don't think that they help the end user. I'd rather talk about the wear experience as a whole. I usually only feature one fragrance at a time on my channel, and the only occasion where I did a double review was when I covered Eau d'Aquilaria by Oman Luxury and I paired it against Frédéric Malt's Promise. That video made total sense because the fragrances smell very similar, and I really wanted to pinpoint the minute differences, and I wanted to pinpoint the differences in presentation and overall brand vibe. Today though, I'll be covering two fragrances from the same brand that in all actuality do not really smell much like each other and do not really compete with each other. So why am I covering them together? Why am I comparing them? Well, it all comes down to the fact that although these two fragrances do not smell similar at all, they leave me in the same sort of emotional state. Dare I say it, a state of apathy. I'm left wanting more, both from the fragrances and both from the brand, and I thought it would be interesting to talk about this aspect. Before we dive into the brand concept, brand identity, and individual scent profiles for these two fragrances, I want to specify that I've been owning these for quite a bit. I got them in a trade a while back from my friend Nat. Actually, I got them individually in two separate trades, and I've put in a lot of wears. And it's weird because every time I wore these, the opening got me very excited. Both of these scent profiles are very good and very interesting. But as the hours go by, I kind of forget that I'm wearing these, and as they're kind of gone in the deepest of dry down, I'm left with nothing. No memorable experience, no memory, no urge to go back to these scents. They're very apathic, very neutral, very sterile. As a Swiss person living in Switzerland, I'm always very excited to sample and experience local creative offerings. Pernoire is a Swiss brand born super recently in 2020 from the mind of two fragrance enthusiasts. The brand identity, the narrative, and the vision behind the brand is actually super cool. Basically, these fragrances are designed to affect your personality and to give you the character that you always wanted. Their motto on their website clearly states, "We do not produce pleasant scents, we create olfactory personalities." And as I said, their vision is to transform people in their desired version of themselves. I find this super cool, really inspiring. It's just such a cool concept. Unfortunately, it sort of falls short in practice. The scent profile for these fragrances doesn't really convey the boldness of this messaging, and the brand overall is coming across as a little bit lacking eagerness to stand out. I get it. It's a new brand, new fragrances. You want these fragrances to be somewhat likable, somewhat mass appealing, but going too far in the direction of the market preference really kills the vibe, really kills the idea. If you're not willing to take risks, it's likely that you're not going to really reap the rewards. And I already talked about the concept of mood and fragrances and personalities. I really like that idea. Most of my fragrances actually really affect my mood. That's why I chose them. That's why I wear them. So much so that my YouTube channel is basically based on describing fragrances according to mood and vibes rather than listing the notes. And even in my top 10 favorite fragrances of all time video, I kept referring to the mood. I kept referring to the optimistic vibe that those fragrances convey and how peaceful they make me feel, how relaxed they make me feel. It's a huge part of fragrances in my opinion. It's a huge part of the way I perceive fragrances emotionally, and it's something I value deeply. That's why I was so intrigued by Pernoire as a brand, and when I first researched them, I thought, wow, this brand really gets me, this brand is really cool. It's really cool because on the official website, you can find concepts and details for each fragrance, including their listed personality. And as I said, today we're going to be covering Amoral and Mazar. Amoral, the first of the two fragrances, has a listed personality of immortality. I'm not really sure if immortality is a personality, but hey, that's what's listed, that's what we're going with. The idea behind Amoral is based on its name, amoral, amoral, lack of morals, lack of rules. Basically, the concept of being able to pursue whatever you want. And I think that the website refers to this as the pursuit of power. It's meant to be a very masculine, very decisive, very empowering fragrance. It's a beautiful fragrance in actuality. It's very woody, it's very powdery, very elegant. I feel that it has classiness to it, but it also has a little bit of a fun factor. There's a little bit of fruitiness, a little bit of dried fruits. There's definitely some plum. It's a really beautiful fragrance, but overall it kind of falls short in the wear experience department. The second fragrance that we're going to be talking about is Mazar, and this, according to the website, has an attached personality of self-confidence. Mazar in Arabic means path, and again, according to the website, this fragrance is meant to depict the path ahead, facing challenges, getting stronger, getting more self-confidence. It's a fairly similar concept as the other one. The other one is a little bit more anarchist in a way, but this one here still feels masculine in a way. It feels directed to males. In all effect, this to me comes across as actually very unisex. Yes, it's a dark fragrance, it has a little bit of animalic facets, it's very, very rich and dense, but overall, again, the citruses combined with the labdanum, combined with the leather, give me strong Le Lion vibes. And if you think that that is unisex, this one is also just as unisex. It's a cool fragrance. Again, very well done, very exciting, but overall, again, it lacks a little bit of punch. But unfortunately, despite the massive and clear effort to try to inject intent and character into these fragrances, they come across as a little bit nondescript. They lack long-term punch, and they just wear like a quick burning fire. But we're going to talk about the scent profile that we're experiencing after we cover the presentation. Presentation-wise, Pernoire fragrances are actually very thought out with a lot of attention to detail. It all starts out from the boxes that they decided to showcase, not only because they're incredibly beautiful, very luxurious feeling, but they also offer a lot of information. The boxes themselves, as I said, they're incredibly well made. They're super solid. There's some sort of a compressed cardboard, but it feels like wood. It feels incredibly durable, incredibly luxurious. On the back of the box, you get a little bit of a description of the fragrance, which we're going to read because maybe we find a little bit more lucidity in the intent. On the front of the box, you get the name for the fragrance and the unique symbol for each fragrance, which we're going to be detailing soon. As you open the box, which opens from the top in a similar manner to the Milfouchuni boxes or to the old school Amouage products, you're greeted with the fragrance basically on a pedestal. It's absolutely beautiful. It looks luxurious. It looks and feels the part. Before moving on to the presentation of the bottles, I just want to quickly read the information found behind the boxes for each fragrance. This might give us a little bit more clues to find out what these are all about. The description behind Amoral, which I want to remind you has an attached personality of immortality, reads: "The city at night is your playground. The cold hard streets are your workplace. People cannot explain your success or your rise to the top. Rules are just another way to keep the masses from reaching the top. But not for you. You have bent your morals in more ways than you can ever imagine. You have gained more notoriety and money from your immorality than the moral obedience ever could. Mysterious yet captivating, your essence is amoral." Amoral means lacking the sense of morality, being unconcerned about the right or wrong. You see amorality as an advantage and wear it as your scent of choice. Actually, come to think about it, I think I'm completely wrong about the associated personality. It's not immortality, it's immorality. That makes so much more sense. Anyway, this was it. This was the description. Very mysterious, very dark, very interesting. On the flip side, the description for Mazar, which had an associated personality of self-confidence, reads: "To become yourself, one must seek the discomfort of new uncharted territory. Only by facing challenges, we can grow and we can find who we really are. By going against the grain, you can determine what makes you unique. Only by challenging your public persona and focusing on who you truly are, you can succeed. Solely by finding your own path and your own destiny can you be your true self." Mazar means path in Arabic. The dragonfly represents the path, the metamorphosis to become your true self. And again, this is referring to the symbol of the fragrance, the dragonfly in the case of Mazar. In the case of Amoral, it's a statue, like a bust, like a Roman head, and that is symbolizing power, symbolizing basically the pursuit of power. When it comes to the bottles, the presentation follows the luxurious feel of the boxes. They're small, they're 50 ml extrait de parfum, but they're heavy, they feel luxurious, and overall incredibly well made. The bottles are finished in this black lacquered paint and feature the name of the fragrance on one side and the associated imagery on the other side. I like the finish. It feels luxurious, but it's very fingerprint prone, and it's actually prone to scratching. The paint is not super hard. The cap of the fragrance is actually really amazing. It's this chrome ball, very heavy, metal. It feels super solid. Be careful because it will slip and it will fall to the ground, basically marking it forever. The atomizer for the fragrances is actually pretty good. The weird thing is that both atomizers are a little bit different from each other. One of them is pressurized, and this one here is Mazar, and I think this one here is not the pressurized one. Yes, Amoral features a pressure to action, which is very different to this one. Maybe they belong to two different product generations. Let's give Amoral a couple sprays on my right arm. It actually looks similar, but it feels very different. It requires a lot more pressure on the atomizer. Again, not a huge difference. I'm just pointing out the very minute details. As I said, the presentation for Pernoire products is very thought out, very luxurious. It just feels good. But are they worth the price? Because these fragrances actually come in at a pretty penny. 50 ml of this retail for over 200 Swiss francs, which is even more in terms of US dollars. They're pretty much impossible to find at discounters. It's a very small brand. I doubt that they distribute to discounters. Are they worth it? Well, presentation wise, I would say yes. Scent profile wise, I guess we have to find out. And as a segue, it's finally time to talk about the scent profile and wear experience for both Amoral and Mazar. What do these actually smell like? When talking scent profile, given the fact that these two fragrances are fairly different note-wise and vibe-wise, I'm going to be tackling them individually. Later, when we're talking about wear experience, these two fragrances really come close to each other, showing their true similarities. At that point, I'm going to be covering and comparing the fragrances together. Starting off with Amoral, what is a quick and easy way to describe this scent? As I said before, this fragrance is decisively masculine. It's meant to be masculine, it's meant to be empowering, it's meant to empower immorality, not mortality. How dumb was that? Anyway, this comes across as classy, elegant, well put together, well refined. You have to have a very defined personality to properly pull this off. Some say that it's overly dark, a little bit animalic, basically relegating it to winter or evening wear. I don't think so at all. It's actually fairly light and powdery. The woody aspect here is not dark, it's not rich, it's not oily or resiny. It's very light, it's very clean. It's a beautiful clean wood. It kind of reminds me of Alexandria 2, as most people say on Parfumo, but it's a much more masculine, gritty version of that. It's nowhere near as strictly baby powder forward, as rose forward, or as floral forward as Alexandria 2. This one here, as I said, it's much more edgy, more gritty. The wood has a texture. Everything has a little bit more density. And not density, again, is in darkness. It just has a little bit more weight. It carries a lot more personality. It definitely has some sweetness and fun factor though. The scent profile comes across in general as very likable, very mass appealing. This is not an overly edgy scent. Yes, it's beautiful, it's intriguing, it's mysterious, it's a little bit edgy, but it's overall, first and foremost, a mass appealing scent. When you first spray this on, you're immediately greeted with this very beautiful fruity wood combo. The fruits in here come across as a little bit more mature, a far cry from your typical tropical fruits or even very vivid saturated fruits. They come across as a little bit more dense, heavy. I am picking up on plum and I'm not even that good at identifying notes, but this is clearly plum and maybe some sort of a dried fruit thing going on, maybe dates, maybe some sort of a dried apricot. It smells like condensed fruits. The woodiness that accompanies these fruits is edgy and fibrous, decisively masculine, but there's also a very clear, clean aspect to it. It comes across as fresh, airy, there's no stench to it, there's no stinkiness, there's no animalics. And although this fragrance lists oud, I can't perceive any oud to save my life. Again, it comes across as nice and edgy, very fresh, very wearable, quite likable. In the backbone, you get this sweet vanilla tonka thing. I'm not really sure what it is, but it adds a lot of smoothness to the scent. This scent is overall very, very smooth. Unfortunately, this very exciting, classy, refined opening does not last that much at all. But we're going to talk about the wear experience after we cover the scent profile for Mazar. The opening for Mazar is actually also really, really interesting and well made. These are very good scents, especially in the start as they were conceived. Unfortunately, I think that a lot of the effort that was put in the opening is lacking in the dry down and overall wear experience. Anyway, this smells a lot darker than Amoral. This smells like a souk. It smells very spicy. It smells very resinous. It smells very, very thick. This kind of reminds me a little bit of Francesca Bianchi's offerings, namely the dark side. It has this thick, greasy, sweaty, animalic backbone. It's not necessarily overly stinky. It's not horrible. There's no fecalness. There's no poop. There's nothing like that. It's just incredibly musky. It's very, very heavy. The scent overall is very heavy and very, very leather forward. As I said before, it also kind of reminds me of Le Lion by Chanel, but a much dirtier version of that. The aspects of this scent that I sort of pinned to Le Lion are those bright, sweet, candy citruses at top and the very deep, smoky labdanum in the base. Again, this labdanum is very representative of leather. It has this greasy leather accord. Again, take Le Lion, make it much more dirty, much deeper, much darker, and you sort of get this. It's a beautiful scent. Once again, it's very likable, very mass appealing within its niche because it's a lot more edgier, it's a lot more difficult to wear. But overall, I feel that the scent profile is typical niche. It's not too out of the box. It's not too experimental. And yeah, it's a little bit dark, dense, maybe a little bit overwhelming, but I do feel that a third party's consensus, the general third party opinion on this would be very, very positive. It smells objectively good. It's very intriguing, very mysterious. There's no one that would find this offensive. You wouldn't necessarily wear it every day. You wouldn't wear it in the summer. You wouldn't wear it at the office, but it's generally a good smell. And this is where Pernoire is really focused on. They're making edgy smells that are heavily contained, heavily smoothed out. And in my opinion, unfortunately, this really hinders their ability to stand out in the market and to really show what they can do in this very crowded, very competitive niche sector. But time to talk about the wear experiences, because as I said before, this is where the similarities between these two scents really meet. This is where, unfortunately, these two fragrances really fall apart. As awesome as the opening is for both of these two fragrances, the development is what kills them. After about 1 to 2 hours, both of these two fragrances fall off a cliff, and they fall hard. So much so that the mid dry down to deep dry down is incredibly generic, very, very boring, and incredibly subtle, very thin smelling. It feels like all the effort has been poured into the opening, into the very first impression. The wear experience overall for these two fragrances is so forgettable, it's so mid, it's so mediocre. You kind of just forget about them because they literally disappear. And starting off with Mazar, you basically dry down to this faint resinous labdanum, which is very powdery, very subtle. Again, it's super, super subtle. You can barely decipher any of the top notes that were there, any of the beautiful citruses that were in the opening. In the case of Amoral, the scent becomes even more boring and opens up very characterful, very powerful, but it dries down to this generic, woody, powdery compound. And again, they don't smell necessarily similar. They just wear in an exactly same way. They just fall off a cliff immediately. And the strange aspect is that I only started noticing what was happening in the dry down after being incredibly analytical about the wear experience. The first time wearing these, I was very excited, I was very positive, and then I just kind of forgot about these scents. And every time I wore them, I was like, what was that scent again? What was that about? Because it didn't leave a lasting impression. And this is due to how quickly these lose steam, fuel, and sparkle, ultimately ending up in this incredibly generic pit. Interestingly enough, you don't necessarily even notice this jarring difference top to bottom, this transition. Actually, scratch that. This is no transition. This is no evolution. This cannot be intentional. This is just a perfumer focusing on the opening. And going back to my teased intro, as cool as the opening is, it's still very much tailored to the market preferences. These do not reflect the cool messages, the cool ideas, the cool concepts that are showcased on the website. They come across as niche products, yes, because they do kind of smell niche, but in a very predictable way. This is even more boring than something like Xerjoff. Xerjoff has built their identity upon being fun, being edgy, being loud, being saturated and colorful. Pernoire doesn't really have an identity to start off with. I think that they're just too new as a brand, but they came out swinging with this really cool idea and concept without really following up. Their fragrances are forgettable. They're not really identifiable. They're nondescript. They're not edgy enough to stand out in this crowded market. You have to come out with a really cool idea, really cool concept. And it doesn't necessarily have to be provoking or completely over the top like in the case of Gualtieri. If you take, for example, a brand like Meo Fushuni, he perfectly managed to convey his personality, his intent, his ideas throughout his beautiful, delicate scents. And people really connect the two concepts. They really connect the dots. And that's why Meo Fushuni resonates as a brand, while Pernoire comes across as a little bit try-hard, a little bit half-baked. Am I being super harsh against the brand? Maybe, but at this price point, at this level of presentation, at this level of intent, I was expecting a lot more. Unfortunately, I come from a background of math where there is no prize for trying. You either succeed or fail. And I do think that in order to succeed, Pernoire should rethink their perfumer, come out with something a little bit more characterful, something more recognizable, and less people-pleasing, less market-pleasing. But enough with the scent profile, let's talk about some practicality, starting off with performance. As I said before, this is a sour point for these scents. They wear really badly. They start off incredibly well. The projection is very loud, very beautiful, very exciting, but it drops off a cliff after 1 hour. And the longevity overall is pretty much terrible. I get maybe 3 hours of detectable wear, then the fragrance is so much a skin scent, it's so generic that it basically fades off into nothingness super fast. But hey, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm being anosmic to one or more ingredients in here, maybe these scents are just not built for me. As far as actual versatility and use cases, these are not bad at all. As I said before, they're designed to be likable, they're designed to be somewhat mass appealing, although edgy. Especially Amoral, this could be easily a signature scent all year round. It's dark, it's edgy, it's woody, but it's also classy and elegant. You could probably wear this anytime, anywhere, day to night, casual to elegant. You would come across as masculine, powerful, direct, decisive, yet at the same time very classy and elegant and understated. It's a beautiful scent profile. If only that opening would last a little bit longer and more smoothly transition in the dry down, I could easily recommend this as a 4-season wear, as a beautiful signature scent. When it comes to Mazar, the scent is clearly darker, it's more resinous, it's more edgy, a little bit more animalic. This is decisively winter and evening. This in the summer would be a little bit too much. It has a strong resinous ambery vanilla component, which would be a little bit overwhelming, a little bit too sweet. Even when talking top notes, those citruses just come across as a little bit too candied, too sweet, just a little bit too dense, too much. Other than that, wearing this as an evening scent, as a party scent, as an event scent, this would be a killer application. If again, the opening would last longer, if you would get a little bit more sillage, a little bit more of a smooth transition to the dry down. This would be an incredible contrast with a more elegant attire, combining that edginess with that likability factor. Again, if it would last a little longer. It's a really cool opening, really cool scent profile. If you like this, just go with The Dark Side by Francesca Bianchi, you won't be disappointed. When it comes to demographics, starting off with Mazar, this one here is decisively more unisex. It can be worn pretty much by anyone who is a fan of deep, dark, resinous, a little bit sticky, a little bit animalic scents. It's really beautiful, it's really enticing, really mysterious, really adventurous. When it comes to Amoral, this one here is decisively more masculine. It has this masculine edge to it, although very clean and very elegant. Age-wise, it's a little bit more of a toss-up, although I do think that they lean a little bit more youthful. Unfortunately, after all, they are designed for the mass market, for market preferences. When it comes to imagery and narration, it's a little bit of a sore spot. Pernoire had a lot of potential, their ideas, their concepts, their intentionality, the details they put behind these fragrances are so cool, but the scent profiles fall so short. And again, I'm not necessarily even talking about the wear experience. This is beyond that. This is more about rounding off a scent profile, castrating a scent profile to make it as likable as possible. They should have taken the risk. They should have gone for more edginess. They should have gone for more character. In this video, given the fact that these two scent profiles are very different and that the video is long enough, I won't be showcasing any options. So let's dive right into my recommendations and conclusions. As you may suspect, I'm quite disappointed by these two fragrances, making them very hard to recommend, at least by my experience. I like the House of Pernoire. I like their identity. I like their intent, but I do think that they have to revise their offerings, make them a lot more edgy, a lot more recognizable. You can definitely put out more likable products down the road, but it's incredibly hard to launch a brand with those. It's incredibly hard to emerge in this oversaturated market. There's so many other niche brands that have similar scent profiles. These do not come across as unique whatsoever. I'm not really sure how to conclude this video other than telling you that these will probably be traded off, hopefully to someone that can appreciate them more than me. These are definitely not for me. Every time I wore them, I kind of forgot what these were. I never gravitate towards wearing them. I have worn them in the past days, even at the office. No one batted an eye. Again, they're very likable. If for whatever reason you're into fragrances that wear like a flash fire, if you specifically connect with the concepts and ideas of the brand, by all means, go ahead. In any case, I still recommend going first and foremost for a discovery set. You might find other fragrances that last longer, that wear a little bit better. Again, this is my experience based only on these two fragrances. The brand itself has potential. They're cool. I like their vibe, but they really need to work on their perfumery. I know it's easy for me to say, I know it's easy for me to critique, especially given the fact that I have no direct investment into the business, but I just wish that more companies would take risks. The coolest products came out from risky decisions, full of innovation, completely backed up by the company, ride or die. If you like this type of content, if you like my approach to video, feel free to subscribe. It's always massively appreciated and helps the channel. If you want to interact with me, leave a comment, suggestion, opinion, or anything else down below. I always reply and I always keep the conversation open. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your time. Many more fun videos to come, many more reviews. See you in the next one, and cheers.